Okay, so Mario Kart World is the newest installment in the Mario Kart series, and since it's a Mario Kart game, it comes with a bunch of new tracks. So I thought it would be fun to just rank every track in the game. Okay, well, technically it's not every track. There are two tracks that I'm excluding, and that is like the second variant from Crown City and the first variant of Peach Stadium. That is just because I'm just going off of what you can race in versus mode. Because in versus mode you don't have the other variants of like Peach Stadium and Crown City. You just have the base track. And I'm not going to count the intermissions either, just because I want to focus on like the tracks themselves, like just the tracks, no intermissions at all. And I also just want to say that I like every single track in this game. I don't think there's a single bad track in this game, but there are some that are worse than others. So yeah, let's just get right on to the ranking. So coming in at last place, at 30th, we have Koopa Troopa Beach. As I said, I do like every track, so I like this track. But I had to choose the weakest track, and for me, I think that's Koopa Troopa Beach. Like, the layout isn't that interesting, it's just a circle, honestly, so not that interesting, and it's pretty short as well. Like, it's got 5 laps at least. And I mean, I have nothing against short tracks, like for example Baby Park in some of the earlier games. I have nothing against that track, but that has a lot of chaos as well. And yeah, this one can have a bit of chaos, but not as much as Baby Park. It feels like the regular amount of chaos you get with other tracks. So yeah, not really that special, but I mean, I do like the aesthetics of this track. I think it looks really nice. Like, I really like the bright beach aesthetic, I like that, and I like that this track has a lot of shortcuts as well. It makes it a little more interesting at least. But yeah, in my opinion this is my least favorite track in Mario Kart World, but that doesn't mean it's a bad track though. Then, coming in 29th place, we have Desert Hills. Now honestly, what did they do to this track? Like, this is a track that has been in some Mario Kart games before, and like, they butchered this track. Like, with the ending segment, like, they got rid of the hills. They got rid of the hills in Desert Hills. Weren't the hills like the entire point of why it was called Desert Hills? Anyways, I shouldn't go too much on that. It's just the name. Now for the track itself, it honestly isn't really that interesting. Like, the turns are very wide, so not that interesting of turns. I do like a lot of the shortcuts though. I like that this track has a lot of shortcuts. Like, yeah, that does mean that this could be a bagging track, but honestly, I don't mind some tracks being bagging tracks. Like, I like that some tracks have like some big shortcuts. And yeah, one thing I also like is that I like the dudes, the like stone dudes from Mario Land, just going around the track. They're just epic. They're just very epic. But other than that, I don't really have that much to say about this track. I just don't really find it that interesting. The only reason it's above Koopa Troopa Beach is just because I'd much rather drive on this track rather than Koopa Troopa Beach. But other than that, there's not really that much interesting about this track, honestly. Now, coming in at the 28th spot, we have DK Pass. Now honestly, this track is also kind of just not that interesting to me. Like, yeah, it has some interesting elements. Like, I really like the gap jump at like the beginning of the track. I think that is really cool, honestly. It feels great to pull off. But other than that, I don't really care that much about the track. Like, I like the aesthetic, but there's not really that much to this track that I care about, honestly. There are a lot more interesting tracks in this game, in my opinion. Like, the only reason I put this above like Desert Hills and Koopa Troopa Beach is just because of that gap jump in like the start of the track. Because other than that, there's not really that much interesting about this track, in my opinion. Now coming in number 27th, we had Peach Beach. Now this track was honestly a track I was pretty excited about returning, because I remember liking it in Wii, but that was probably just purely off of aesthetics. Because like honestly, this track is I mean, it's more interesting than like the tracks we've had before. Because yeah, I like the cataquacks at like the beginning, but now that you can drive on water, it's a lot easier to avoid them. Like yeah, I don't know if like the sand path is faster than the water path, because driving on water feels a little slow in this game. But yeah, at least the first lap is not that interesting. However, the second lap, I think it's honestly pretty good. Like they changed this track to be like a 3-segmented track, and honestly I am all here for it. Like the second lap has a lot more parkour stuff, like you're driving on top of rooftops and stuff, and I think that is really fun because I love the parkour mechanics in this game. They're just great. Like this track just doesn't show it off that much, but I still like driving on those rooftops and stuff. But after that, in lap 3, that is like where this track falls off in my opinion. Cause lap 3, like, what were they thinking? Like yeah, the glider part is cool, I guess not really that special. But after that, the water section is kind of just mostly a straight line. Like you have one turn and that's kind of it. Like the third lap, it kind of just loses me to be honest. Cause like, I don't really like straight lines that much, honestly. I'd much rather have a track with like a lot of turns and stuff. First lap of this track, fine. Second lap, really like it. Third lap, not that great, honestly. Now coming in at the number 26 spot, we have Moo Moo Meadows. Now, why this track was included? I don't really know. We got Moo Moo Meadows in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I don't know why we needed it again. Like, the track isn't that interesting. So I feel like we could have had like Moo Moo Farm maybe if they wanted a farm. But I mean, I'm not complaining that much. I do like Moo Moo Meadows. And yeah, what can I say? It's Moo Moo Meadows. Like, it has some cool shortcuts. That's always cool. I like the Monty Moles jumping out of the ground in like the ending section. And I also like the cows. They have some good obstacles. But honestly, they're a lot easier to avoid in this game than they were in like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in my opinion. I don't know, maybe it's just because the road is much wider now. So yeah, I think I like the Mario Kart 8 version of this track more, but I mean, it's still Moo Moo Meadows. I still think this track is fun, just not really the most interesting track in my opinion. Now in the number 25th spot, we have Salty Salty Speedway. And honestly, I really like the concept of this track. Like having like most of the road be water and like going down rivers in like a city and stuff. Like I think that is really cool. I think the aesthetic of this track and the idea is great. But where it falls apart for me honestly is just that driving in water just doesn't feel that great. I don't know if it's just me, but driving in water it feels like I have a lot less handling, I drive slower, it just doesn't feel great. Like, that might just be something I have to get used to. But in like my 15 hours of playing this game, I still don't really like the water physics, so I think this might just be something I don't like, but hey, maybe again I'll just have to get used to it. But yeah, as I said, I love the aesthetic of this track. I do like the layout a lot. I think the layout is great. There are a lot of turns which I really like. There's a really cool shortcut around the end that I like. But I feel like this track just gets watered down by like the water driving mechanics. Now coming in at 24th place, we have Choco Mountain. And I also felt with this track that we didn't really need it because we got a remake of it in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and like, it's not a great track honestly. Choco Mountain for me at least is just fine, I guess. But honestly, this remake is so much different. Like yeah, the layout is pretty similar. But other than that, this feels like an entirely different track. And if I'm gonna be honest, I like this more than the original and the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe version. Like I really like the aesthetic of like the monster truck rally or whatever this is supposed to go for. And I like the chocolate just spewing out everywhere and you have to drive in the chocolate. It also makes for some pretty cool shortcuts, and yeah, maybe the shortcuts can be a little too big because like there's one shortcut here that is massive. But as I said, I do like me some big shortcuts. But yeah, other than that, I don't really have that much to say about this track. I think it's cool, but not the most interesting track in the game. There are a lot of tracks I'd much rather drive on. Now coming in at the number 23rd spot, we have Mario Bros. Circuit. Now this isn't the most complicated track, but it is the first track in the game, so I feel like it doesn't need to be complicated. But yeah, I honestly feel like this track is an amazing first track. Like, it teaches you a lot of mechanics in this game, like of course just the driving, it teaches you the rail grinding, it teaches you the gliding, like it teaches you a lot of stuff. And even though the layout is kind of simple, it's still fun. This is a good layout. And I really like the shortcut at like the beginning of the track that you have to take with like a mushroom or just something to get over the off-road. And I also like the aesthetic. I feel like this is a pretty unique aesthetic for like a beginning track, cause, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe there has ever been a beginning track in a Mario Kart game that takes place in a desert. I don't think there has ever been that. So yeah, I like the aesthetic of this track. I like a lot of what this track goes for, but it's just not as interesting as a lot of other tracks in this game. But yeah, I still think this track is pretty solid. Okay, so coming in at number 22nd place, we have Acorn Heights. Now, there are a lot of things to like about this track. Like, there are a lot of cool rail grinding stuff you can do in this track. Like, there's a ton of tech you can do in this track. I'm not good enough at this game yet to do a lot of like the insane tech in this game, but there is a lot you can do, and that is just so fun in my opinion. But yeah, other than the tech, I don't think this track is that interesting. Like, yeah, I like the theme of like going in a tree and then going down and like grinding on like different plants and stuff and then going on leaves. I do think that is cool. Like, this kind of feels like a magical forest kind of. But I don't really find it that interesting to drive on. Like, as I said, yeah, all the tech is cool, but it's not that interesting. I'm also not the biggest fan of the ending section. Like, yeah, there are like some acorns that you have to avoid, but other than that, it's not really that interesting to drive on the ending section in my opinion. But I do really like the shortcut, like going into the ending section. That is a really cool shortcut in my opinion. But yeah, Acorn Heights, I do like the track, but it's not the most interesting in my opinion. Now coming in at number 21st place, we have Wario Shipyard. Now honestly, this track has a lot of great things going for it. Like, the theming is amazing. Like, a haunted shipyard is honestly so cool. I love the aesthetic of this track. But where this track kind of falls apart for me are just the water physics. Cause as I said earlier, I'm not the biggest fan of the water driving in this game. And especially with the waves. Cause yeah, I like that this track has waves. It makes it more aesthetically interesting. But when it comes to driving, I think the waves are a little janky. Okay, maybe not janky, but they feel janky. Like, they feel weird to drive on. Like, sometimes it feels kind of weird to get like my drift out, and just tricking feels weird with waves. Like, there are a lot of times where I'm pressing the trick button and I feel like I should get a trick, but I just don't. Like, sometimes it feels like you have to be like pixel perfect to get these tricks. But yeah, in my opinion, I think the theming just carries this track, honestly. Like, yeah, there are some cool tech you can do on this track, but I don't think it's enough to like carry it super hard. I think for me it's just the aesthetic that carries this, because the aesthetic is really cool, honestly, but the track itself just doesn't feel that great to drive on. Now coming in at 20th place, we have Starview Peak. Now this track is beautiful, and I really wanted to love this track, especially since it is kind of Rosalina themed and she is one of my favorite Mario characters. But this track kind of falls apart at the water section, cause yeah, I really like everything before the water section. I think it's great. Yeah, there's not really that much going on, like looking back on it. Again, with this track, the aesthetics carry it hard. But where this track kind of falls apart for me is the water section. Because again, I'm not the biggest fan of water driving in this game. So like, every track with water driving is just kind of gonna be a little worse in my opinion. And like the water driving, it is like a speed boosted section, which I always love, but it doesn't really feel that speed boosted just because water in general in this game feels slower, so it still feels kind of slow in my opinion. I don't know if it actually is slower, but it feels slower. Like, I will say this, the water section is beautiful. It looks amazing. Like, this entire track looks amazing. But the water section is just kind of boring to drive on. So if this track was more like the first half, like before the water, I would probably place it higher, but the water just kind of makes the track worse in my opinion. Now coming in 19th place, we have Dandelion Depths. Now this track is pretty fun honestly. There are a lot of turns on this track. Like the beginning section is just a circle and I kind of like it. Like you're just spiraling down and I kind of like it, and then you go into this cave. And yeah, there is water driving here, but honestly, I really like this water driving. Like, it's not that long, and it feels a little faster because, like, you're going down and down and down, and you can do, like, a bunch of tricks in the water, and I think that is pretty satisfying to, like, pull off those tricks. But other than that, the cave is honestly, like, the most interesting part of this track, in my opinion. Like, yeah, as I said, I like the spiral, like, on the way down, but I just don't think the track is super interesting or super memorable. Like, if we look at it aesthetically wise, I just think it's boring for the most part. Like, yeah, the cave section is beautiful, but like when you're not in the cave, it's just like, it looks pretty basic. But yeah, even though aesthetically, like, half of the track is not like the best, I think like the layout itself is pretty good and like driving on it is pretty good, so I think this is a pretty good track honestly. It's just kind of forgettable in my opinion. Now coming in 18th place, we have Faraway Oasis. Now this track is honestly pretty fun to drive on. I have learned some of the tech for this track, and I think this tech is super fun. Like, of course, I'm gonna be a little more biased with this track just because I've learned some of the tech. Like, I've not learned, like, the optimal ways to play this, but I have learned some of the tech, and I will say, I do think the track is fun to drive on, but I think there was a lot of missed potential with this track. Well, kind of just one missed potential, and that is that I kind of wish there was like some animals on this track that you had to avoid. Because like in some of the intermissions to this track, there are like maybe some zebras or some ostriches on the track that you have to avoid. And I was kind of hoping for that with Faraway Oasis, but like all the animals are like on the side. And like, yeah, there are like some buffaloes in the shortcut, but that is in the shortcut and they are really easy to avoid honestly. So this track is mostly carried by just the driving and the tech you can do on this. Like the track itself isn't super interesting. I feel like there's not that much going on that you like can look at. Like theming wise, I think this track kind of missed the mark. But like when it comes to driving on, I think it's cool. Now coming in at 17th place, we have Mario Circuit. Now when I saw this, I was kind of like, why are we doing another remake of Mario Circuit? We got Mario Circuit 3 in like 8 Deluxe and like a bazillion other games, so I don't get why we needed this. And especially not in the Special Cup, because this thing is in the Special Cup. Like, I don't think this track fits very well in the Special Cup, but I will say I was pleasantly surprised with this track. Because this track is like a combination of like Mario Circuit 1, Mario Circuit 2, and Mario Circuit 3. And that honestly made this track better in my opinion. Because I will say, I never really had anything against like Mario Circuit 3 back in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I think it is fun. I thought the layout was pretty fun. And yeah, the same goes for this track. I think the layout is fun and extra fun because like each lap is a different Mario Circuit. So I think that makes the track a lot more fun in my opinion. And there are also a lot of shortcuts which I like some big shortcuts, and I kind of like that in this track. Like I don't think we should have too many tracks with like big shortcuts like this, but I like that this track has shortcuts. And I also just like this track in general. It is pretty fun to drive on. Now coming in at 16th place, we have Whistle Stop Summit. Now the theming of this track is great, like you're driving on like train tracks and stuff, and I think that is great. But where this track shines the most is that this track shows off like the grinding so well. Like, there's so much grinding and stuff you can do, and honestly, grinding is like one of my favorite mechanics in this game. I love the addition of the rail grinding in this game. So this track is immediately gonna be a lot better for me just because there's so much rail grinding you can do. Like, you can grind on like the train tracks or just regular rails if you want. And the layout of this track is also pretty fun. Like, the bridge section is a little like a straight road, but there is a lot of tech you can do on it. Okay, maybe not that much tech, but you can go to like side to side to avoid some of the chaos and get some of the coins and stuff. And yeah, I really enjoy that. I really enjoy this track in general. There's just a lot of stuff you can do on this track. Like, a ton of grinding, some cool shortcuts. That is kind of just a lot of stuff I like in this game. I just like when tracks have a lot of tech to it. So yeah, this track is honestly pretty great. Now, coming in at 15th place, we have Peach Stadium. Now, this track is honestly pretty fun, and I really like the whole thing where you're just going higher and higher up into the sky, and then you just drive down again. I don't know, it just makes this track feel more epic, just going further and further up into the sky. I just really like that, and like, I think driving on this track is pretty fun. Like, yeah, there's not that much interesting stuff to this track. Like, the layout is kind of simple, but there is just something to this track, honestly. Like, the aesthetics I think are really cool. Like, driving high above like Peach's castle I think is pretty cool. Like, I really like that section where you drive up with like all the boost panels. Like, you just feel so fast. Like, I don't know if I'm crazy or something, but I think like the boost panels feel faster in this game than they have like ever felt in a Mario Kart game before. And also, I really like the feather exclusive shortcut at like the second half of the track. I think that's really cool. But yeah, this track, I don't really know how to explain it. I just really enjoy this track, honestly. Now, coming in at the 14th spot, we have Cheep Cheep Falls. Now, honestly, I love this track. There are a lot of turns which I really like. And of course, the theming is great. I love the Japanese theme, so it's great, of course. But of course, the theming, yeah, it's great. But I feel like how fun the track to drive on itself is like the most important part. And I honestly think this track is so fun to drive on. Like, yeah, as I said, it's really turny. And I will say this, even though there is a big water section in this track, I honestly think it's one of the better water tracks in this game. Cause like, it feels like you're going really fast like down the river. And honestly, that just makes it great. Cause like, one thing I don't like about water sections is that they feel kind of slow. Like, yeah, there's still the part where it feels like you have less handling, which I still don't like in this track. But it actually feels like you're going fast in the water. And like, there are some Cheep Cheeps like jumping out of the water. And like, they're not a problem most of the time, but I do appreciate them being there just so that you have to look out for other obstacles as well. And there are also some really fun shortcuts on this track. It does make it a little more of a bagging track, but I don't care that much if it's a bagging track. I still try to front run it because I think that's the most fun. And it is still possible to front run this track. So yeah, Cheep Cheep Falls is an absolutely amazing track in my opinion. We are now on the section where I think like every single track onwards is like amazing. I absolutely love all of these tracks coming up. But yeah, Cheep Cheep Falls is a really good track in my opinion. Now, coming in the 13th spot, we have Boo Cinema. Now, this track, I will say, the layout isn't the best in my opinion for the most part, but the thing that makes this track honestly so great is when you jump into like the cinema screen. Cause like, oh, it's so great. I love that like it changes filters to be like an old-timey movie and you're like driving on like a film reel with like some old-timey Peach there. It's just great. Like, that part of the track makes it so much better. And I think it's unfortunate that like all the parts outside of the theater screen are kind of just boring. Okay, not boring, they're still fun to drive on, but they're not really that interesting. Like, what carries this track the most is like the film reel stuff and like inside of the theater screen. Cause yeah, that is amazing. I love that part. So yeah, that is honestly why I like Boo Cinema more than Cheep Cheep Falls, because I was struggling with like if I should place Cheep Cheep Falls over Boo Cinema or Boo Cinema over Cheep Cheep Falls. It might still change. I am still a bit iffy on this ranking for these tracks specifically. But for me right now at least, the whole theater screen thing makes this track so amazing. Now coming in at the number 12 spot, we have Toad's Factory. Now, I might be a little biased here because I grew up on Mario Kart Wii, but honestly, Toad's Factory is such an amazing track. I love the idea of like driving through a factory where they make all the items, and I mean, it's great. This factory is great. Like, I love the beginning part with like the conveyor belts where you can like drive in the middle, which is more risky, but it's faster. Or you can go to the sides, which is slower, but you can get an item. And also I like at this like turning section where they have like two conveyor belts. One makes you go forwards and one makes you go a little back. Okay, not back, but slower at least. And I like that because it's again risky to take the one that takes you forward because like it's faster and most people want to take that one. And I also like some of the additions on this track. Like around the end there are like some girders that you can grind on, and I really like the addition of that. It gives this track some extra tech, which I do like. And I also really like the ending section where you like have to make sure you go over the speed boost so that you don't hit the off-road. Because yeah, there is a lot of off-road in that section, and I do like that you have to go into the speed boosts. It makes the track a little more difficult, which I do enjoy. Now coming in at the number 11 spot, we have Sky High Sunday. Now there's no secret that Sky High Sunday wasn't exactly the best track in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So it was kind of interesting to see that they decided to make this one return in this game. But honestly, they made this track so much better. Like yeah, it's still the same layout, but they added so much tech on this track. Like they added so many grind rails like all over the place, which I really enjoy. And they made like the ending turn on like the ice cream. They made it really cool where you can like wall ride on the side of the ice cream, which is faster, and I really enjoy that. Because of course I love the tech in this game, so like all the tech with like the rail grinding, the wall riding, if all that gets utilized well in the track, I do tend to really like that track. And Sky High Sunday I think utilizes these things really well, honestly. And of course the aesthetic is great, because yeah, the aesthetic in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe wasn't great to be honest. Like yeah, I liked how colorful it was, but graphically it was not the best. But here, it looks great. It looks absolutely amazing. There are like actual textures here and not just plain colors. And yeah, Sky High Sunday is an amazing track in this game. Now, we are entering my top 10 favorite tracks of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And at the number 10 spot, we have Dino Dino Jungle. Now, I might be a little biased here because I do like dinosaurs. I do think they're cool. And yeah, this track is really fun to drive on. Like the layout is cool, but like the coolest thing is like you can ride on a lot of the dinosaurs, which I think is so cool. And like there are also some dinosaurs which are like obstacles that you have to avoid, and that is also great. I love having to avoid those obstacles. And I also really enjoy what they did with this track. Like they turned it into like some Jurassic Park-esque thing with like the inside with like some sort of laboratory-esque type place, and I do quite enjoy that. I might be biased here as well because I love Jurassic Park. But yeah, this track I think is absolutely phenomenal. I love the vibes of this. I like the jungle aesthetic and like the laboratory aesthetic with like all of the dinosaurs and stuff. I like the T-Rex charging at you and stuff. It's just, oh, I just love this track, honestly. It is so great. I don't have words. Well, I do have words. I just spent a little while yapping about this track. I do also like the shortcut in the middle of like the inside section. I do think that's a pretty cool shortcut. It skips a lot of the track, honestly. And I also like the bridge at the end where like you can see like a dinosaur is taking a bite out of it. I do enjoy that. So yeah, Dino Dino Jungle is an amazing track. Now coming in at the number 9 spot, we have Crown City. Now, what I like about this Crown City, since we're going off of the Versus Race Crown City, is like that it combines the two Grand Prix Crown Cities into one big track. And honestly, I love it. And like this track, it feels like you're going through a big city, honestly. It's a lot better than the cities in Mario Kart Tour, to be honest. Like, this is honestly such a good city. Like, yeah, there are some straightaways, but in like the big straightaway, there is some stuff to do. And like, I love that you go from like the more dirty place in the city with like smaller buildings and stuff, all the way to the more clean part of the city with the bigger buildings. And I also love that you drive on like some construction stuff like in the air. It just makes it so cool. Like this track honestly feels like an adventure through a city. It is so much fun, honestly. Crown City, I was honestly not expecting to like Crown City that much because I have bad memories from city tracks and from like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But honestly, this track has surprised me quite a bit. I think this is like the best city track Mario Kart has ever done. It is just phenomenal in my opinion. Now coming in at the number 8 spot, we have Wario Stadium. Now if we're talking about a track that utilizes some mechanics amazingly, it is this one. Because this one has so much tech to it. Like there are so many walls you can ride on, there are a lot of rails you can grind on. And just the track itself is honestly pretty fun. And like, I never played the original Wario Stadium from Mario Kart 64, but from what I've heard, that original one wasn't great. But this one is fantastic. And it seems like a lot of people enjoy this one as well. And like, I can't blame them, this track is super fun to drive on. Now coming in at the number 7 spot, we have Great Question Block Ruins. Now this track is absolutely phenomenal. Like I love the theming with like not just ruins, but ruins of a question mark block. I think that is great. And like the track itself, oh, this layout is amazing. This is such a good layout. This is a damn good layout. Like there are so many turns and like there's so much tech to do on this track. Like there are a lot of grind rails and stuff, and like around the end section there's like a big shortcut. Okay, it's not that big, but it's pretty cool to pull off though. The shortcut around the end is like really cool to pull off. And it's super fun. But yeah, this track also has some great mushroom shortcuts, which like I always enjoy me a great mushroom shortcut. And yeah, I don't know what else I have to talk about with this track. I just really enjoy it. Like I like the layout, I like the tech on it, I love driving on it, I like some of the shortcuts a lot, I like the theming. So yeah, this track is just great, honestly. Now coming in at the number 6 spot, we have DK Spaceport. Now this is a fun track. Like this one, the theming is great, honestly. The theming of this one is like a spaceport that is supposed to have like the same layout as like the original Donkey Kong arcade game, which I find so fun. And I love like the big robot Donkey Kong there. And like, yeah, there are a lot of straightaway sections on this track. Like big parts of this track are straightaway sections, but there is a lot of stuff to do in those straightaway sections. Like the first one, you're dodging barrels while bouncing on some stuff. And the second one, again, you're dodging barrels and tricking up stuff. Maybe the least interesting part, but still a little interesting. Then like the third part, which is probably my favorite, you're grinding on rails and you can do some cool stuff there. Like, it probably just seems cool now, honestly. It's probably not gonna be cool like 5 years in the future, but for now it's pretty cool. And like in the section after, you can like wall ride and stuff. I know it's not optimal, but it is pretty fun to do. And then in the last section, it's a big straightaway. This is probably one of my least favorite sections of the track, but it's still fun because you have to like dodge some big barrels that like the robot DK is throwing at you, and then you get into the goal, and the track is super fun. This track is honestly fantastic. Like, it's super fun to drive on, the aesthetics are so cool, and yeah, the track is just amazing. Now coming in at the number 5 spot, we have Dry Bones Burnout. Now I love this track. I really like the lava theming of it, and like you're going through like the skeleton of like a big dry bones, and like how big was that dry bones? Because this skeleton is huge. It is massive. It's like this had to be a big dry bones. But anyways, The track layout itself is really cool and super fun to drive on, and I really like when you go into the glider and see like a big dry bones. And like I really like that there's some like Day of the Dead stuff on the dry bones and just like around the track. I really like that theming, honestly. And one thing I really like about this track are the shortcuts, because like if you use a mushroom, you can go through lava without sinking in it. That is kind of something just with the game as a whole. I really like that if you use a mushroom or just any dodge item in the lava, you can still get through it. And I think it's done really well on this track. And there's also a lot of tech on this track, like there are some grind rails and stuff, which I always enjoy. This track is great, honestly. A lot of it is just the theming, but it's super fun to drive on, honestly. This track is so much fun in my opinion. Now coming in at the number 4 spot, we have Airship Fortress. Now I never played Airship Fortress before this, but now I get what all the hype was about, because this track is great. Now it's of course a little different in this game because there are a lot of grind rails, but I will say the grind rails add a lot to this. It adds a lot of cool tech to this track, which I really enjoy. And I also really like the beginning section where you have to avoid all the like big bullet bills. They might be bonsai bills, I think, that are just flying towards you. And I really like that section. That might be like my favorite section of the track. Like yeah, it's a straightaway, but there are some bonsai bills coming at you and you can go on the grind rails, which I really enjoy. And I also like when you get on the ship, there are like some wacky moles, I believe they were called, like popping out and they act as obstacles. And I really enjoy that. And of course, this track is just super fun to drive on. There are a lot of turns like all over the place. And I also really like this part with like the 2 grind rails and like 2 torches, and like if you go on a grind rail, yeah, it's faster, but it's risky because the torch might get you. But you can also switch from one grind rail to another if the torch gets close to you, which I really enjoy that. But yeah, Airship Fortress is again an amazing track. Now coming in at the number 3 spot, we have Bowser's Castle. Now this is an insanely cool Bowser's Castle. I don't know how much of a castle this actually is, but I don't care if it's a castle or not, it's super fun to drive on. Like there are of course a lot of turns which I like, and some of the things that makes this track so cool are like these speed booster sections, because they are so much fun. It's so much fun to just go through them and drive super fast. And also in this speed booster section, there's like a big lava Bowser, which is really cool. And there are like some fireballs falling from the sky, which you have to avoid. And I really enjoy all of this. Like this track is phenomenal. I've always enjoyed Bowser's Castles, and this is probably one of the best Bowser's Castles in the Mario Kart series. It is just such an amazing track. Like I can't stop thinking about the speed booster sections. If a track has a speed booster section, except for Starview Peak, it is absolute peak. But yeah, Bowser's Castle is absolutely phenomenal. Now coming in at the number 2 spot, we have Rainbow Road. Now this game's Rainbow Road, I would say is probably one of Mario Kart's best Rainbow Roads, because like this is phenomenal, and it's a super long track as well, which I really enjoy. Like there are 4 different sections to this track and it's all so much fun. Like it's Rainbow Road of course, so there are a lot of turns, and I will say this, it's not exactly the hardest Rainbow Road, and like yeah, I wish it was a little harder because it is Rainbow Road. It is supposed to be like the final big challenge of the game, but I don't really mind it that much just because of how amazing this track is. Like of course, as I said, the layout is great, there are a lot of turns of course, but like this track is beautiful. This is like probably the most beautiful track in Mario Kart history. Like the Rainbow Road itself is beautiful, but like when you come to like the lake, like yeah, it's a water section, it's not that fun to drive on, but like the lake is beautiful. This is probably the most beautiful area in any Mario Kart game, or dare I say any Nintendo game in general. Like I actually kind of like that river just because it is so beautiful. Like I don't really care that it feels kind of slow. Okay, it doesn't feel that slow, but a little slow at least compared to the rest of the Rainbow Road. But like, it's just so beautiful. And then later on you get to like a space station. And yeah, the beginning part of the space station is not the most interesting. Like there are some turns which are interesting, but I really like when you get to like the speed booster section with like the thwomps. And there are some really tight turns. Like these turns are so tight and they're like some of the most fun turns in the game in my opinion, just because of how tight they are. And then after that, you go into a glider and see like this absolutely beautiful view, and you enter the fourth and final part of the track, and it's just so great. It is so great. And you see like the train going by you with like all of the like friends you made along the way kind of thing, with like the robot DK from DK Spaceport and like a lot of other creatures from like other tracks. And it's just so good. This track honestly feels so much like a victory lap. Like this is, in my opinion, the Rainbow Road that feels the most like a victory lap, and I just love it for it. And I will also say the music of this track absolutely slaps. Like yeah, I think pretty much every track has some amazing music. Like this game in general has an amazing soundtrack, but there's just something about the music in this track. Like in my opinion, this is like the most memorable track in like the entirety of Mario Kart World, because like this music really makes this feel like a victory lap, and I just love it. This is an absolutely amazing track. But coming in at the number 1 spot, my favorite track in Mario Kart World is Shy Guy Bazaar. Now I never played the original Shy Guy Bazaar, but I always thought it looked cool. So I was pretty excited for it to come to Mario Kart World, and honestly, this track delivered. It delivered hard. Like I love the beginning of the track where you go through like a bunch of stands and stuff with like Shy Guys and stuff. And I also like a ton of the different paths you can take, because there are like so many different paths you can take on this track. And I think that is important for this game, because there are 24 players, so different paths I think is important. And like this track, I think this is like the track that utilizes these new Mario Kart World features the best. Like yeah, there's maybe not that much wall riding, but there is a lot of grinding you can do here, and I think that is so great. Like there are so many shortcuts you can do just with the grinding alone. And as I said, a bunch of different paths with like the grinding and stuff. And I also really like that they changed a little bit about this track where like it takes place in Sarasaland. I just think that's a pretty cool detail where you can see like Daisy's palace in the background. I don't know, I just think that's a pretty good detail. So yeah, Shy Guy Bazaar is an absolutely amazing track, and it is my favorite track in the entirety of Mario Kart World. So yeah, that was my ranking for every single track in Mario Kart World. Now this ranking could probably change over time, because like it was really hard to put together, because I enjoy all of these tracks to be honest. And I really hope we get some sort of updates or DLCs later down the line where like we get more tracks, because honestly this game has some amazing tracks. And I would love for Nintendo to make more of these amazing tracks with like the grinding, the wall riding. But yeah, I want to hear from you guys. What are your favorite tracks in Mario Kart World? Let me know in the comments below. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye!